Maybe about 5 years ago, 10 or 20 or 30 years or whatever, we thought things are more stable. Wars, famines, pandemics, unruly dictators, and so forth. We thought are events that happened in the past. Many of us indeed haven't experienced such events in this life directly. Most of us grew up with a good education, a more or less stable household, a good society, we had good jobs, etc. So why should things change? Yes, we have been somewhat dissatisfied with our jobs, our relationships, the society, but overall we still got enough pleasure and satisfaction out of it. We can't even see nor feel how people may have totally different life experiences, such as limited access to education, refugees from war-fighting countries, abuse, rape, or food shortage. We are living or have lived during a time of privilege we are not even aware of, but we expect things to continue how they have been. And if they are not, we blame others for our misfortune. We are totally blinded in our ignorance, our attachment, greed, and anger. But in fact, samsara will be always unstable. After this pandemic, something else will occur that will shake us. Something we can't even imagine, like we could not imagine a pandemic to sweep over the whole planet. There is no heaven on earth that will last forever. There will be no country that will forever have the perfect leader, the perfect environment, the perfect economic condition. Things will always change. If we look for peace on earth, we are looking in the wrong direction. We have to find the peace within our own heart, and this will not happen by just reading 2-3 books, Dharma books, or attending one Dharma talk by a highly realized master. True peace, true happiness can only occur through a regular, steady, consistent, and diligent Dharma practice. Only through practice of the Dharma in a serious manner with lots of effort will strengthen our abilities of our mind and transform into realized beings with immeasurable abilities to help others to progress along the path. Right now our abilities are limited. We can't even help ourselves. Therefore, we need to rely on the Buddha and attain Buddhahood ourselves. Therefore, we are going to continue to study the last 7 of the 37 practices to learn methods how to progress along the path, how to find peace within and attain Buddhahood to help others, to find lasting peace within themselves as well. In this review sharing, I'm relying upon 3 commentaries. Venmo Shotun's commentary, of course. I don't believe everything you think. Then a commentary by Alex Bersin, whom I treasure so much for his clear, modern explanation in general. And also a very short commentary by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That's just a small but great treasure. His Holiness himself, he received the oral transmission of the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas from Kuno Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen Rinpoche. Some of you know him, a realized master that he greatly admired and who has realized bodhicitta. So, studying and meditating this poem, the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas, brings us closer actually to become a Bodhisattva. But without effort, nothing will occur. We learn that these practices are very challenging, but not impossible to achieve, as we can see with the author and Tibetan scholar Tokma Sangmo. It said that Tokma Sangmo had bodhicitta in his heart. His Holiness said that merely by looking at his text, the 37 practices, we can know that Tokma Sangmo embodies bodhicitta, and so this instruction is extremely beneficial. Bodhisattvas can be known by their natural signs, just as invisible fire can be inferred to through smoke, and water can be inferred through seeing a heron. By reading this text, we understand the suitability of the title Bodhisattva for Tokma Sangmo. For example, I love to bring some stories in. That's just a small one. Tokma Sangmo usually kept a fox close to him, like a dog. And foxes like to eat meat and hunt. But this fox became very tamed, very good-hearted, being with Tokma Sangmo. He did not eat meat, he did not hunt, he did not hurt anybody. It said that Tokma Sangmo had such a good heart that influenced the fox so positively. Tokma Sangmo was very sensitive. And his main studies and practice was bodhicitta. And every time he taught his students, he cried, and his students as well. I find such examples very, very helpful. They inspire me. They show me that transformation is possible, that the state of bodhisattva is possible. A bodhisattva is somebody who strives to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others, in order to help others most efficiently. And this short poem that Tokma Sangmo wrote outlines 37 practices such persons adapt to reach that goal. Even if we don't strive for enlightenment, the verses help us a great deal with daily life's issue. And they give us a tool how to be of greater benefit to others. So this last section focuses especially on the daily practices of bodhisattvas. Now these practices are even more relevant than ever. Very suddenly our life changed. Very suddenly we are faced with a virus that can be deadly. Some people responded to the change with calm, with ease. Others, under the same circumstances, reacted rather with agitation, trying to eliminate the momentary suffering they feel, living under certain restrictions. They felt helpless, unable to endure the change, while others maintained calm and adopted a courageous attitude. So why is this so? It all depends on our mind, on the positive actions we have done and the merit we have created. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, Buddhist teachings encourage us to not lose hope, but to use this time wisely to increase our merit, to generate great courage, to accomplish as many wholesome deeds as we can, and to have good hearts. His Holiness said in his commentary too, gaining merit is important and extremely powerful. He also said that having a calm mind while facing difficulties is wholly profitable. So he would not say that by practicing the Dharma, we will immediately eliminate COVID, for example, or heal everybody who got sick. But by thinking of the Dharma, we experience a certain form of tranquility, and this will give us some pleasure. So we can make every moment meaningful, even by using our breath, as we learned from Venerable Damsho, and this morning in our meditation. We can use our breath to benefit others instead of wasting the oxygen. But it takes practice and lots of preparation. But as more as we do practice, the more our mind will be submerged with Dharma. For example, when we wake up in the morning, we can be aware of the possibility that something bad might happen to us today. As I mentioned in the motivation, we never know what will come towards us. Every morning there is something we don't know. Even our own death may occur today. Then if something happens, our mind is prepared, so we can maintain an even mind. But if we expect that we will be always calm and happy, think only from the positive side, then we will be very surprised when unpleasant things happen, and we may feel unhappy or discouraged, disturbed. Indeed, it's doubtful as to whether that is in fact even Dharma practice. His Holiness said, if inside our mind there's positive energy, then that is Dharma. If there's negative energy, that is not Dharma. Dharma should be in our heart. If our heart is tamed, calm, and relaxed, we are practicing Dharma. If someone wears a robe and speaks of the 3 baskets of Dharma but does not have a tamed mind, he or she is not a Dharma practitioner. So whoever has Dharma is very open-minded, relaxed, humble, calm, and naturally has a good heart. Wherever he or she who deceives and belittles people and tells lies is not engaged in Dharma practice. The kind of behavior that really is Dharma practice consists of refraining from falsehood and abiding by the truth, neither humiliating nor mocking others, being humble and adopting a lowly position, having a good heart, helping others, and sacrificing self. These are the words of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. All right, let's stay on the text and continue with joyfully staying on the path, with verse 31. It states, if you don't examine your own errors, you may look like a practitioner but not act as one. Therefore, always examining your own errors, rid yourself of them. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So the main lesson is here to look within and examine our own errors. So now we learned many techniques to progress along the path, but we could not, or we could get sloppy in the process, thinking because everything is smooth, we are well set. Maybe we get complacent when people praise us for a good Dharma talk, or leading a good meditation, or being of great service to others. Our project goes well. Or maybe we don't get praised, but we think like we are a good practitioner, and we wear these robes. But in meditation time, we actually don't meditate really on the teachings or follow the instructions of our teacher. Instead, we ruminate of how we can get our needs met. Our mind is not in the Dharma. This is very damaging to ourselves and to others, as our defects at one time or another will come out and others will notice. So if we really have a Dharma mind, we are looking inside and be attentive so we can recognize our afflictions. Staying on the Dharma path means to continually turn our focus towards within. So Nakpa as a Buddhist. A Buddhist, those who turn their intention towards inwards, their own mind. If we don't examine our mind, we will fall back into unrealistic expectations and judgmental attitudes. Venerable Shutrans said, and don't believe everything you think, our primary motivation should be, first, I need to get my own mind under control. After I have done that, I can then begin to think about teaching others. Without knowing ourselves well and restraining our own ignorance, anger and attachment, our intention to benefit others will make us what is called a Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva. A Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva seems to have a lot of compassion, but lacking wisdom and skill. She creates havoc. We don't need to wait to become Buddhas, she says, to benefit others. While we are on the path, we can benefit others in whatever ways we are capable. But we avoid making ourselves appear like something we are not. Rather, we remain humble, more concerned with correcting our own errors and pointing out those of instead of pointing out those of others. So this verse 31 is especially emphasizing that we have to practice. Only if we practice will we get rid of our own faults and act in ways that are of benefit to others. So if we wish to see the change in the world as it's sad, then we have to be the change ourselves. We can apply that in the spiritual world, but also in daily life context. If we wish to see compassion in the world, we need to practice compassion ourselves. If we wish to see a harmonious community, we have to start to be gentle and kind to others. Verse 32. If through the influence of disturbing emotions you point out the faults of another bodhisattva, you yourself are diminished, so don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. So basically this is pointing out to refrain from criticizing a bodhisattva's behavior or talk badly about bodhicitta. This will lead to a degeneration of our own practice if we do that. That does not neglect the fact that we can, in circumstances, point out unskillful behaviors, acts of bodhisattvas even, give instructive criticism and suggestions how to be more skillful. It reminded me of a fairly new case of sexual misconduct that happened in the Buddhist communities by a Tibetan teacher. And another very influential teacher who has, I think, spiritual realizations, was likely a bodhisattva, protected basically this teacher and did not admit that he did sexual or practiced sexual abuse. We don't know. He has likely realized emptiness. So only if we ourselves have realized emptiness, we will understand really what this teacher meant by that statement. But many other Buddhist teachers and practitioners gave, in result to that, some constructive criticism to those who enact inappropriately, such as harming others. But important to keep in mind to comment on the action while doing it, not to degenerate or to speak badly about the person. The person has still the Buddha nature and the Buddha potential. So that means we can give useful feedback, be respectful, and give constructive criticism at the right time and place. But in general, it's good not to mention the faults out of anger or attachment. And as monastics, we are training according to the Vinaya to only be mindful of our own behavior, to see if it's correct and does not interfere with others' affairs or inspect what they do or not do. So basically, it's asking of us to keep our feelings with us, not to put them on others or to get involved in things we don't need to get involved in. For example, it's not recommended to yell at another person we see at Safeway or at the gas station because they don't wear a mask, full of anger or resentment. That will not encourage the other person to put on a mask. They will just feel intimidated and may get angry in a turn, and we have heard these stories occur. Do you have any other example that speaks to our current circumstances, time we are living in that regard? So we are asked not to speak of others in an afflicted state of mind, such with anger or attachment. And so now, under such life circumstances, people act totally different than we would act in public. For example, we wear masks and find that reasonable, others not. And I brought up this example not to yell at them because we don't agree with what they are doing, but to speak rather kindly to them. So are there other examples from this current situation where we can apply that first?
Well, I think that is quite dangerous and really easy to fall into is the ease with which people spew our opinions on social media in response to almost anything. I probably don't need to elaborate on that anymore, but I think that's a really good example and really easy to fall into, I can see.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, Venmalosang.
I think about when a politician is doing policies that we don't like. It's easy to develop a lot of anger towards that person rather than just disapproval of the policies, and even to then everything that person does is wrong and not ever see anything they do as constructive. And basically, because it's a sentient being, and I mean, our opinion could be wrong, but if they are wrong in what they're doing and they're under the power of afflictions, to see them as an enemy is a wrong consciousness. To see the afflictions as the enemy is more correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Something.
Brings to mind an editorial that I read in the Newport Miner, which is our little town newspaper. And a woman went into Safeway to get some coffee, and she was in a hurry, so she didn't put on her mask or she couldn't find it. And then she was approached by someone who was screaming at her about not wearing a mask. And the woman didn't reciprocate with, anything angry. But then she went home and calmly wrote a letter to the editor saying that, she apologized for not wearing her mask. It wasn't careful on her part. But if this woman who screamed at her screamed at someone else, she's going to get a very negative result, and it could, blow up into violence. So I thought that was very skillful.
Yeah. When I was with Velma Schüttrin, to bring her to her physiotherapy appointment and then collected her again after she finished, she was in the process of talking with an older man, and one who lives in our area. She never met before, and his mask was falling off his face, basically. And she did not. I mean, she was basically in danger, and he himself too, right? And he just shared with her that one in his family has COVID. So, and she very kindly, very calmly said, "Sir, your mask fall off your face." Yeah. So the next verse is on reputation and reward, verse 33. It states, "Reward and respect cause us to quarrel and make hearing, thinking, and meditation decline. For this reason, give up attachment to the households of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas." I remember one story Vanama Shutran shared when she shared with us when she was a younger monastic. She did not have much money, and so she could not travel around like many other Dhamma practitioners at that time. Her parents did not give her financial support, but she observed other monastics who could freely travel to teachings or do other things. And so they were therefore very closely committed to their parents or patrons, sponsors, friends, and had to spend a lengthy of time with them, such as going on ship cruise trips and such. But that led to a decline of their own Dhamma practice and studies. So if we attempt to please our donors or seek to fulfill aim or attain privilege, His Holiness said, Dhamma activities like hearing, contemplating, and meditating degenerate in the process, giving rise to anxiety and discontent in the practitioners themselves and the community around them. This is a direct result of the disadvantages of the practitioner being linked with several families and one or more patrons and developing a close relationship with these people. So here at Sravasti Abbey, we have limitations how often we call our family, friends, sponsors, or how long we stay with our family and holiday or friends, sponsors. So this will actually help to reduce our attachment and develop special relationships with them. So for younger monastics who are not that long in the Dharma, and this often provides a challenge. And for some lay people, it may be a very unusual behavior. So therefore, I wonder if some monastics here would like to share their experience with this practice of refraining to be very close to our parents or sponsors or friends who support us, and instead turn our minds towards the Dharma.
The first time I was planning on visiting my family as a monastic, I realized that many of the things that they did were not appropriate for me. And so I, was worried about that. And there's a lot of attachment in families, of course. And so and these are the things I used to do with them. So what I ended up doing was write a letter before I went. And I said, here are the things that I'm really looking forward to doing. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that I cannot do. Mm. And that worked so well, because when I went there, then they had planned all these things, like, walking in different parks and like that kind of thing, visiting certain place in the mountains or like that. And so that worked quite well, actually. Yeah, and then I felt protected too, and easier to hold my my vows.
Yeah, great. Mm.
Fortunately, I didn't have the wisdom of Venerable Jigme the first time I ever went home in robes. I was so tight about my precepts and holding my deportment that I spent most of my time in my room as they were sitting around roasting marshmallows and having a glass of wine and, having their barbecue. I was, in my room, missing them and being rather righteous about keeping my precepts. It was really, and it confused them, and I left like totally dissatisfied. So I learned my lesson, but I did not. It was an afterthought rather than Venerable Jigme's wisdom before doing it. So, but it was mostly attached. I didn't do it. I didn't participate because I was attached to their disapproval. I was attached to my own perception of what I thought I should be, which I don't think helped their perception of who I now was. So,
Yeah.
Coming from Chinese family, I think my parents didn't understand monastic. So when the first time I went back, there was my mom was so freaked out. She thought she had to have new pots and everything, cutlery and everything new, and nothing that touches meat. So it's they were very tight. And then after that, I think they relaxed. They're kind of like, okay, you're still a human being. You're still normal. You're still my daughter, but not quite.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody also experienced something like a commitment, to our parents or friends who support us financially, to go there and spend time with them, even so you think it would be better to study and practice instead. I wonder if anybody of you have made this experience. Not the Abbey way, yeah. We don't have personal sponsors or so, like, I, for example, have been supported from, not personal friends per se, but from an institution in that sense. But luckily it's an institution, so they don't demand from me to come and spend time on a cruise with them. Yeah, Vanmalamsa.
It might have been last year or the year before, but the Sakyadhita conference was in Sydney, Australia, where I'm from. And I wanted to actually go to that conference, but I went, I go back there, my parents are going to have certain expectations about staying with them, staying in their house, staying longer after the conference. And I just said, I'm not putting myself in that situation, because I didn't feel I could skillfully handle that situation yet to work with their expectations of me and still be at peace with the decisions I would make.
Yeah.
So that was just interesting to see. It's like, I'm not ready for that yet, just because of the entanglement. Not that I didn't want to see them, but just what would be comfortable or helpful for my mind wouldn't necessarily be what they would be asking me to do.
Yeah, that's the right thing to approach it, to look within and to judge within our own mind if we are able to stay within the Dharma or follow along our old habits of connecting with our parents or friends. So, yeah, normally when we are with our family, or for example, we may fall into old patterns, as I said, end up maybe quarreling with each other, and this will have a very detrimental effect on our Dharma practice. Therefore, we should be firm in our commitment to the Dharma, even if it affects our relationship to our sponsors. So Alex Burson writes in his commentary, Ralo Tsava, a great Tibetan translator, once said, "The type of Dharma practice that I'm doing is something that my teacher has instructed me to do. And so even if nobody likes me for what I'm doing, I don't care." In other words, we are not doing Dharma practice in order to get other people's approval. When we know that we are following the Buddha's path according to the instructions of our fully qualified teacher, then it doesn't matter. We don't need anybody else's approval. We really need to be unattached to that. It's a good lesson to keep in mind. So now with COVID and being in many cases unable to visit our families, relatives, friends anyway, we have an excellent opportunity to train refraining from attachments of that kind. It's not meant to harm us, but to benefit us in the long run. We can see that with Venerable Shutran, for example, she became a very excellent practitioner because her Dhamma practice did not decline. She did not spend a whole lot of time with her family and friends to please them. She kept practicing instead. Instead. So let's continue with verse 34. Give up harsh words. Harsh words disturb the minds of others and cause deterioration in the Bodhisattvas' conduct. Therefore, give up harsh words which are unpleasant to others. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So these past 4 years, for example, have been quite an exposure to harsh speech, not just for US citizens, but worldwide actually. We experienced how a political leader put others down, humiliated them, how he vented his anger on social media or other news forums. I thought this is actually a teenager behavior, actually, and did not expect that from an adult who has responsibilities, a leadership position. A good leader should think foremost how to benefit others. Venerable Shutran writes, "You may try to be a leader, and instead of leading people and virtue, you abuse your authority, thinking, I'm the leader, and these people respect me, so I can scold them, I can boss them around, I can criticize them to their face if they don't do what I want. I can embarrass them and humiliate them, because I'm the person in power. They believe in me and will follow me no matter what. Arrogantly thinking like this diminishes your love and compassion, impedes your bodhisattva conduct, and leads to harming others through harsh words." It's interesting. This is taught by her many years ago and still applicable. Even if we haven't taken bodhisattva vows, we still create lots of negativities through harsh speech. Harsh speech may temporarily look like as it would benefit ourselves, but ultimately it's harmful. From anger, rage, belligerence does not grow compassion and love, as Venerable Shutran says. If we look down on others, we do not respect them. In the end, we will suffer from it. Our spiritual practice will decline as we will engage in negative actions. Harsh thoughts lead to harsh speech, and harsh speech lead to uncaring actions. So does anybody of you like to share your experience, how this year was for you and what you learned from it in regarding to harsh speech? Vanamakunga.
I learned that I'm very easily susceptible to being influenced by others' harsh speech, so I just easily fall into that habit. And it's already going on in my mind. I just don't vocalize it, but then when I see it out around me, I just kind of dive right in, and then it's really awful, and I become what I'm supposedly complaining about.
I don't know if I learned this year, but I think the thing that comes to mind when I think about this year is that any of the harsh speech that happened in the society at large only took away from the ability to solve problems and to deal with things that need to be dealt with. That, it didn't. I don't see that it. In all the different, even thinking about the different demonstrations that happened, I don't think that. I don't find that those kind of situations where people go over the line beyond demonstrating, but to screaming or yelling or any of that, I don't see that as contributing to something that's going to actually be useful in the long run.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's not just having a negative effect on ourselves, but on society at all, as a community. Yeah.
The one thing I learned during this contentious election cycle was that listening to the rhetoric out there and the harsh speech, I kind of approached it at first kind of like, I need to know what's going on so that I'll be better prepared. But what I found was it disturbed my mind tremendously. And like Vinamakunga said, the mind kind of starts following that. And so this idea about all the information that we can tap into, which is huge, most of it is not even remotely helpful. And so that's the big lesson that I took away from this last months.
Yeah. Thank you, Venerable Samten.
I'm recalling a forum that Venerable Chuni and Venerable Sultram and I went to in December of 2016. This was barely 2 months, not even 2 months after the election. And this forum was organized quickly to bring people together to find ways of supporting people, especially minorities, in our country, in our communities, about the accelerated spikes in hate speech and hate crimes. And so hundreds of people flooded this Gonzaga University forum, and it was so touching. So that is following up on what Venerable Kunga and Venerable Jigme were saying. Gasoline was poured around the country, and then this flame was lit, and people were just inspired to spew whatever hateful things came to mind. And this forum was so touching because people, different minority groups, I went to one breakout group where the Muslim community in Spokane was talking about hate crimes towards their group in the country, in Spokane, around the globe. And they didn't do it with voices of anger themselves. They were sharing the reality of their situation. And actually, most of the people in the room were coming that they weren't Muslims themselves, or they didn't visually appear to be Muslims, but so many people wanted to support everyone there who was being victims of these attacks. And so it just shows me two things. The mind of anger can be ignited in a moment, but then there's actually many, many more people who are wanting to hold hands and, circle around the people who are targeted and try and do something to help.
Yep. I had the similar experience just some days ago where I had this clarity, seeing that actually so many people voted for a new president who holds certain values that are of good heart, wanting to benefit others, and there are so many who voted for him and support him, but there are also many who don't support him, but there are many more who support him, and I think to keep that in mind is very important, even if the other side may be overwhelmingly sometimes present in the media. It does not necessarily show the reality. what's really going on. All right, one more Shuni.
Just need to say to that too, that just because somebody voted for the Republican candidate doesn't necessarily mean that they're a person with a long gun in the street.
No, they're not.
You know, our neighbors and friends and where I grew up, and they're kind-hearted people with a really different, and of course, my view, confused mind. But I want to just say that because someone said.
Sure, yeah. No, I did not intend any inclination. Yeah. Vanamalosa.
I was thinking that with a situation that's so politically polarized, and even if we're not saying harsh words to somebody that's on the other side of the aisle, as they say, which often we aren't. Often we're sitting and griping about political candidate or somebody that opinion we don't like to other people who share that view, and that becomes divisive speech. We're helping to polarize it. So I really appreciate what Venerable Chuni just said.
Yeah. All right, let's go to verse 35. The importance of mindfulness and introspective awareness. Tokma Sangmo says, habitual disturbing emotions are hard to stop through counteractions. Armed with antidotes, the gods of mindfulness and introspective awareness destroy disturbing emotions like attachment at once as soon as they arise. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, mindfulness in the context of Bodhisattva practices refers to the remembrance of our precepts, commitments, and intentions. And mindfulness has different meanings depending on the context we are engaged in. With mindfulness, we live within our precepts and commitments. Introspective awareness is aware of what we are doing and saying or feeling. It protects our precepts, it backs the introspective awareness. It helps to keep a pure motivation in all we do. So if we apply mindfulness and introspective awareness, we destroy negativities such as attachment and so forth. So it's important to counteract our afflictions as soon as they arise. If not, they grow exponentially. We may not even recognize it. The afflictions can grow into a strong habit, and then it's difficult to get rid of them. So when I was in Taiwan for the Bhikshuni ordination, with Therma and Damsho together, I had the misfortune of having no translator in my group. So basically I had to rely on what I saw with my eyes to be able to follow along. I had some English literature with me on the Vinaya that I normally studied during the classes, during the teaching time. But for 1 week there was a male monastic teacher, and he had a very loud voice to start with, and on top of that it got projected on loudspeakers, and one loudspeaker was right above my head. So this loud projection was really disturbing to my mind because I could not read, and he was theatric on top of it. Right? So I was quite unhappy about that, and I felt trapped. I could not understand anything, I could not read, I could barely recite mantras because my mind was already too disturbed. And so I was sitting there, and I was dissatisfied with the moments there. Then I had this brilliant idea to put some earplugs in. And but as obedient I am, I thought, okay, asking the Bhikshuni guide first if that's appropriate. But she said, of course, no. That's a bad habit. And I was surprised by that reply. That's a bad habit. I was first disappointed, but then I thought, here I am, I can't understand the teachings, but still I get some imprints in my mind They will be left for my next life, hopefully. And next time when I face a similar situation, I will not be tempted to put earplugs in. Using earplugs during Dharma talks is actually very unfortunate. And it's similar to getting into a habit, sleeping during the teachings, or being inattentive, or thinking about other things. Instead, we should be attentive, should be mindful, apply introspective awareness so we can overcome our afflictions and other hindrances. So anyway, these two mental factors protect us from acting negatively, but they also can help us to cultivate single-pointed concentration, or shamatha. When we practice single-pointed concentration, mindfulness focuses on the object, and introspective awareness is like an observer who checks if we are still on the object or got distracted. And if our mind is afflicted, we apply the appropriate antidotes. Rama Shuddhan writes in her book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, disturbing emotions come into our mind when we least expect them. Once they arise, we can't just sit there and say, oh, attachment, you are coming into my mind. Welcome, come in, sit down and have a good time. Or anger, you are coming into my mind. Fantastic, I haven't gotten angry for a while. I could use a good buzz of adrenaline. Anger, my friend, sit down and have a cup of tea. The disturbing emotions, she said, are to be like thieves, because they steal our happiness and they steal the happiness of others. If a thief comes into our house, you don't ask him to sit down and serve him tea, do you? You call the police, you sound the burglar alarm, and you chase him out. So I think that picture works really well. Also, disturbing emotions are much more harmful than a thief, as they leave deep imprints in our mind, cause us to create negative karma that lead to more suffering. Therefore, as soon as they arise, we should apply mindfulness and introspective awareness, apply the specific antidotes, and continue on the path. So especially these past years, we may have been triggered quite loudly with all what's going on in this country and worldwide. Reading the news extensively may lead to lots of anger in our meditation on or off the cushion. No matter if on the cushion or not, it's important to check our state of mind regularly, what leads us to the next verse. Verse 36. Mindfulness. In brief, whatever you are doing, ask yourself, what's the state of my mind? With constant mindfulness and introspective awareness, accomplish others' good. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So this is basically saying that we should constantly look into our mind. We should investigate and identify and counteract afflictions. And if we detect some negativity, we should immediately remind ourselves of the meaning of our life, that we at the Abbey recite occasionally as part of our dedication to remind ourselves again and again what is most important in life. We can recite together maybe, dedication for a meaningful life. Whatever actions I do, eating, walking, sitting, sleeping, working, and so forth, and whatever I experience in life, up or down, happiness or pain, healthy or sick, harmony or discord, success or failure, wealth or poverty, praise or criticism, whether I am living or dying, or even born in a horrible rebirth, whether I live long or not, may my life be beneficial for all sentient beings. The main purpose of my life is not simply to be rich, respected, famous, healthy, and happy. The meaning of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. Therefore, from now on, may whatever actions I do be beneficial for all beings. May whatever I experience in life, happiness or suffering, be dedicated to actualizing the path to awakening. May whatever I do, say, or think benefit all sentient beings and help them to attain full awakening quickly. So instead of letting our afflictions running the show, we practice a good heart. Apply the wisdom mind, and as Lama Supa encourages us in his talk on practicing a good heart, to see our responsibility in bringing happiness to all living beings and to eliminate all their suffering. I'm supposed to do this. he says, but it is wonderful that at least I have become of some use to some of them. At least my body is benefiting one being. How wonderful this is, he says. Think like this and rejoice. If you constantly do your work with this attitude, he says, there's great happiness all the time and no space for depression. Whether you are working for 100 people or just for one, and no matter how hard your work is, think like this, especially thinking of yourself as a servant of others. Instead of thinking that others are there for you, to use for your happiness, think, I am the servant of others. I'm here for their happiness, like one of their own limbs. I'm working to eliminate their problems and obtain their happiness. If you think that you are the servant of others, your problems stop. If you think that others are your servants, problems arise in your mind. I thought to share that to remind us again and again. It's not good enough to have the sign in the workshop, you're the servant of others. We have to practice it. So we need to constantly have mindfulness and introspective awareness to remember the purpose of our life and to live accordingly. So we can train our mind every day. Every meditation, we remember to apply mindfulness and introspective awareness. During the day, as soon as we wake up, we remember the purpose of our life. To feel a certain sense of responsibility, to bring happiness, ultimate happiness to all living beings. So when we go for work, from home or in our office, we apply mindfulness and introspective awareness to practice kindness, to benefit others. We should have this motivation firmly in our mind. And even while eating or drinking, we remember the purpose of our mind by recognizing the state of our mind and return to our motivation to obtain happiness to all sentient beings. The purpose of our life is to offer service to others. That's one of our main activities here at the Abbey. Therefore, we need to be healthy, eat good food, and have nourishing drinks. And as Venerable Damshu stated in the beginning of her talk on Sunday, starting off with the teachings of the 37 practices, every single breath can be beneficial for sentient beings. We can use our breath literally to take on the suffering of others and give happiness, as we have done this morning, in order to cultivate bodhicitta. That is, so Venerable Shuton says, the essence of the Bodhisattva vow, to keep integrating the bodhicitta, the wish to benefit others and to obtain Buddhahood, no matter what situation we find ourselves in. So some of you asked already, how can we put the teachings into practice? The last verses tell us exactly how to do that day by day. Every moment, every situation can be utilized to benefit ourselves and others. Even in the midst of COVID, in the midst of a sickness, in the midst of a loss of a dear one, we can always find ways to practice benefiting others, being kind to others. And last but not least, we need to gain continuous merit and prayers to direct our mind towards the right direction. And that we accomplish with the support of dedicating our goodness. Verse 37 says, to remove the suffering of limitless beings, understanding the purity of the three spheres, dedicate the virtue for making such effort to awakening. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So when we dedicate the virtues of our practice, we not just dedicate for our own achievement or our own awakening, but we especially dedicate for the awakening of others. That's referring to the method aspect of the path. We also integrate the wisdom aspect of the path by applying the three spheres. So this means we contemplate the non-inherent existence of agent, action, and object. Means that ourself, the action, and the merit we dedicate does not exist inherently. Everything exists by being merely labeled. They are mutually dependent on each other. And this two-part dedication will make our dedication complete. So this particular way of dedicating Our merit with awareness of emptiness helps us to not fall into self-centered fixations on our own awakening. We dedicate our merit so that all sentient beings can attain awakening. We do not merely dedicate for our own awakening. Tokme Sangmo finalizes with giving credit of his words to the Buddha and lineage masters. He says, "For all who want to train on the Bodhisattva path, I have written the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas, following what has been said by the excellent ones on the meaning of the sutras, tantras, and treatises. Though not poetically pleasing to scholars, owing to my poor intelligence and lack of learning, I have relied on the sutras and the words of the excellent, so I think these Bodhisattva practices are without error. However, as the great deeds of Bodhisattvas are hard to fathom for one of my poor intelligence, I beg the excellent to forgive all faults, such as contradictions and non-sequiturs." Tokme Sangmo's intention with this text was truly to benefit others, to benefit us. He did not at all intend to praise himself, to show off. He admits that nothing came from his own creation, but only from the Buddha's heart and all the lineage holders' minds. He finishes with the dedication, beholding others as supreme. Through the virtue from this, may all living beings gain the ultimate and conventional altruistic intention, and thereby become like the protector Shenrezi, who dwells in neither extreme, not in the world, nor in peace. So to accomplish Tokme Sangmo's and the Buddha's wishes, we need to study and think about those teachings again and again. We need to think upon them very deeply. We need to contemplate them repeatedly, discuss them with others, or write in a journal our own experiences. Valmont Sutran advises us, do analytic meditation by reflecting on the points on this teaching in relationship to your own life. Think about the logic in these new and different ways of viewing things. When you reach a conclusion or have an experience of the meaning of a verse, rest your mind on it single-pointedly. By doing this, you will understand these teachings correctly and will be able to apply and integrate them into your life. Then these verses will have a truly transformative effect on you. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama always too encourages us to think, to think, to think. We combine these teachings with our experiences. We apply the Dharma to those past experiences, situations, and this will transform our mind, as some of the monastics have already mentioned. That's the true meaning of Dharma. A Dharma practitioner is not one who can merely repeat the teachings, such as these here, but to put them into practice and transform our mind. And to make our life most meaningful, we use our insight and transformation to benefit others. We do all actions with a bodhicitta motivation, the wish for awakening for all sentient beings. This way, even our breath can become a forceful instrument to benefit others. And one day we will become an enlightened Buddha ourselves. We will be equipped with everything, whatever is happening to us or in our environment. We will not react with anger or attachment when things are changing or traumatic occurrences come our way. We will be able to maintain calm and know how to use circumstances to benefit others. Nothing will shatter us as it used to be. We will be prepared and have others' interest as our foremost. We have come to this point due to the kindness of all mother sentient beings. Therefore, what uses our own happiness when all mothers who have been kind to us since beginningless time are suffering? So that's actually from the 8 verses. And that's what His Holiness the Dalai Lama says is the essence of that text. So developing a kind heart is of most importance, he says. The most important message here is to have a kind heart. We practice in order to be a good person from lifetime to lifetime. So not just in this life. those people who are courteous, kindly, and self-effacing, and have the sincere intention to benefit others are really practicing the Dharma. Again, those people who are courteous, kindly, and self-effacing and have the sincere intention to benefit others are really practicing the Dharma. So maybe do this. Maybe we can pay the kindness of our teachers and of all mother sentient beings by really going back to verse 1, 2, 3 and finish with verse 37. Every day, whenever we have time, every moment of breath we can use to benefit others, and so increase our capacity and become a Buddha at one point. So no matter what occurs in our life, we will be prepared, and we will utilize these situations to the best.